So, thanks for joining us on the Law Unfiltered podcast. Again, on this episode, we have Marini Mann, Principal at Gilchrist Connell in the insurance space in Melbourne. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jesse. Lovely to be here. Thanks for inviting me to your podcast.
No, it's a pleasure. We met at the Women in Law Awards last year.
Indeed, fantastic night.
Yeah.
I remember you presenting the award. It was very exciting for me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you did very well, and it was great for you to come from Melbourne today just for the podcast, which is a great effort. Thank you very much. So, obviously, being a woman leader in law is inspiring for many people, especially now when, we're talking a lot about gender equality in law, diversity in law, big topics at the moment. Talk me through your journey to how you became the principal at Gilchrist Connell.
Sure. It's been a long one. I started in law firms 23 odd years ago.
Wow.
I was studying law. I was really lucky to get a job as a paralegal at Blake Dawson Waldron, which was Ashurst back then. And I was a paralegal through my degree. It was a great learning opportunity for me to be part of the big six and experience corporate law. It was a real insight for me to the mechanics of a law firm. I think I got a lot of clarity at that point in time. I knew that I probably was suited to a smaller firm, being a bit more close to the clients and the matters. And I ended up getting my first legal role in a smaller inner suburban Melbourne firm. It had about 20 or 25 odd staff. I worked with an ex-magistrate of Victoria who mentored me for the next sort of 3 or 4 years, and it was a great time in my career. I was helping to run some major trials. I was doing a lot of criminal law at the time, some insolvency, some family law. It was an exciting time, to think now that I was in so many trials in the space of 3 years, because matters really get to trial now, taught me a lot of rules of evidence. And I started to sort of think, well, where's my career now heading? I needed to move away from the criminal side. That became a little too taxing for me. And I was ready to maybe move into the commercial space. So I ended up getting a job at Trescox at the time in Melbourne, and that was my debut into the world of insurance. And have never looked back since then. That's everyone's journey into insurance sort of happens. I'm no exception to that. It suited me. Defendant side suited me. You need such a vast skill set, and it moves so quickly. And there's lots of change in insurance. You do a lot of different things, and so I started to build a liability practice and started to do some professional indemnity work. And I got promoted there pretty quickly to senior associate.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and I had a great mentor. If Jason's listening to this, hi Newman. Great boss, great mentor. We ended up moving the practice to Gilchrist Connell, and that was 9 or 10 odd years ago. Gilchrist Connell, Melbourne, which at the time was a small office of 8 people. We're now almost 55. And it was exciting. It was just filled with opportunity, and we got to really build something that we're really proud of as part of the national Gilchrist Connell brand.
Wow, brilliant. And so 9 years ago, the journey began at Gilchrist Connell. You sort of mentioned before the show started about a few challenges that you had when you became partner just before COVID. Talk me through those.
So I ended up being promoted at Gilchrist Connell to special counsel, and that was amazing in terms of an opportunity. But I was really then ready to level up again, and to, a lot of the time when you start thinking about partnership, you're ready to do it your way. Right? You're ready to own a strategy, and you're skilled up enough, your technical skills are where they should be, and I was ready to take that sort of opportunity. And it came, my worlds collided a little bit. I was, pregnant when I was promoted, and I thought, this timeline is going to be challenging, and I knew that at the time. But what do you do when your ticket's there? You take the opportunity and you seize it, and that's what I did. And I had a 3-month platform to do whatever marketing I could, and then I started my parental leave.
Wow!
And then 8 or 10 months later, COVID hit Melbourne pretty badly. We were all sent home to work remotely. And as a new partner, that was really tough because I couldn't get out there and do the usual style BD and marketing. I had to find another way to really do it, to get a practice off the ground from home. And you would know Melbourne had some pretty stringent lockdown, different to maybe some of the other states, good part of 2 years, but I built a practice with, a good sort of client base and following and really supportive clients. And I had my brand that I relied on. And so I just sort of played the cards that I'd been dealt with.
Wow, look, we've you touched on a few challenges there, which if we start and break that down a little, obviously first one, which from a recruiter standpoint, I speak to a lot of candidates, female candidates, women in law who are planning a family or want to plan a family or at that point to plan a family. Their biggest thing is, how do I tell the partner if they're not partners themselves? The fear, is my career going to halt? Will I come back into the role? All these things that happen, that shouldn't really happen but do happen, unfortunately, in law especially. Going through your mind, just being promoted to partnership, but now one of the biggest roles in your life is also being a mum, which is also more challenging. How did you juggle the two, and what were you thinking from a career growth perspective?
What I thought from a career perspective was, this is my time to either sort of, to thrive. And there was no choice. I didn't feel a choice. I felt a lot of pressure professionally. I also felt a lot of pressure as a new mum. In fact, I couldn't tell you which was worse. But I managed to sort of take that pressure and really thrive. So I found my drive in that. And sometimes drive can come from challenge and adversity and error and mistake. So I tapped into that. And I worked hard, like a lot of other people did through lockdowns. We talked a bit before about maybe there was less work-life balance when we were all working remotely from home. Productivity went through the roof at our firm. People were working sort of maybe a little bit beyond sort of work hours. That's just what we did. For me, that happened to be a platform for me to thrive. For somebody else who's planning a family or who's just been promoted, it is a challenge, and nothing ever happens perfectly the way you envisage it. You do just have to play the cards that you're dealt with and make the most of it.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Look, that's incredible. But for our listeners who are going down that similar route, how did you manage your time?
Good question. And I'd prefer to be more honest. I worked a lot in that period. I was obviously had a small baby and with no sort of daycare or assistance. I mean, you couldn't move around freely in Melbourne. It was just the baby. This is a lot of parents' experience, not just mine. And during the day, I would just manage as best as I could. I did have my dad come regularly for a couple of hours during the day to mind the baby. I did a lot of work at night, which, not only a lot of lawyers did, but a lot of our clients I could see were working at night. It was a tough time. I'm not sure how much we go back to revisit that time yet. A lot of people have blocked it out, understandably. I'm sure I have as well. But I was working a lot, and I had, a very supportive husband at home who was able to keep me afloat as well, emotionally. But it was hard work, and I did sit down initially to map out what I wanted. I know a lot of people sort of do inspiration boards, and I had a business plan, and I really mapped that out, and I knew that okay, it might not happen in 12 months, but certainly it was going to happen in 2 years' time. And I just relied on my network. I was lucky that, we got some really good major clients on board in that time as well. So it was organising, my practice a bit and planning it and being strategic. And I may not have realised I was being strategic at that time, but looking back in hindsight, I can see there was more planning than I thought.
Yeah, look, I think building a practice in such a challenging time has only probably set you up for success now, because you probably had to do a lot of things that weren't conventional compared to previous.
Yeah, it had its challenges, which has only made me, I guess, grow as a practitioner, but also personally. We talk in law about being agile now and needing to move through challenging times and being organised and being resilient. I think people underestimate how resilient we've really become. We talked a bit about the remote work and moving back to the office now, and how some people have really found their rhythm in the hybrid method of working. So that has helped, I think. And also being set up to work remotely. I mean, our business in 2020, and I remember us being sent home in March of 2020, we already had our laptops ready to go. It was literally about plugging in at home and having the IT set up to really just start from home, which helped.
Of course, I think businesses who are ahead of the curve really thrived during lockdown. Going forward, obviously, you've set up the practice, your team now is thriving, and you said the Melbourne office has grown. Do you see any challenges coming up or you're going through right now?
I think the recruitment side is a challenge, and you would know that better than anybody else. Finding talent with the new generation, they're not new, but I say sort of Gen Y, millennials, and what they want and how they work, and understanding that to recruit's something that I think we're all facing and learning along the way. I know for me, when we recruit at Gilchrist Connell, we've got a very solid value proposition and a really well-known culture. And people know that about us and they seek us out. And I mean, what a great tool to be out in the market, recruiting in that way.
Yeah, I think, look, prior to COVID and all, people just looked at the role, the job title, the salary. Those are the only two areas of focus. Culture plays a big part now. Work-life balance, culture, mentorship, all of these things are so important. Candidates now ask us those questions as well. Prior, they just asked us, what is the job, who is the firm, and what's the salary?
Absolutely. I think what this generation of employers want is to be valued. They want their work to be valued. They want to be valued. They're working differently. And it's not to say that they're not hard workers. Some of them are fantastic workers that still have a really strong work ethic. It's the way that they're working has changed, and they do want outside interests, and they do want time after work. And what a great thing, when we recruit, I always ask in interviews, what else do you do? That question of what do you do for fun? Tell me about yourself. And some of I even ask in interviews, I'm just bringing on a grad lawyer shortly, and I asked him, what are you most proud of in life? And he said, great answer too, he said, my kindness.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, what a great answer. Like, to be able to litigate, to be a lawyer and to lead with kindness and empathy and to be proud of that. And he said, a lot of people think that might be a weakness, and I don't see it that way. And I thought, it's definitely not. It's something that we're all striving to be, and we're sort of getting better at it. If you found that in your late 20s, amazing.
Well, amazing, yeah. Well, that's a great answer for any grad. That's brilliant. That actually leads me to women in law leaders. The stats are quite shocking. The percentage of female lawyers coming through as grads is 60% compared to the male counterparts. But then as the ranks go up and we start climbing the ladder and get to senior associate and above, it's 27%, which is shocking, right? What happened to all those incredible lawyers, women in law? So people like partnership as well. If you look at partnership across most firms, it's very male dominated. A lot of firms are now trying to come to the table. But, any advice for those women in law, aspiring leaders who, when we speak to them, drop out of the race when they get to senior associate or associate because of family or life or firms not supporting them coming back into the workplace after the maternity leave and so on? Any advice you have for those sort of individuals?
It is a challenge, and it's hard to judge. It's hard to judge the situation. I mean, do women have a specific experience when they take parental leave to have a baby and have to come back into law? Of course they do. I mean, it's a life-changing thing. It is for any parent, Jessie, men and women. But I see what you're saying. You get to a certain seniority, you might either really want to fight for partnership, or you might think, hey, I want to, I prefer to focus on my family. You've also got two competing careers.
Yeah.
And taking gender out of the equation, that's probably the most difficult thing. Sure, female lawyers in quite senior positions may have a partner at home that doesn't have as much responsibility, or they could have more. Who's travelling in the relationship? All of these things have an impact as to, at the end of the day, what's good for the person and their family. And yes, a lot of the time, moving up the ladder can get in the way of that. So it's really about what you want out of your career and then what suits your circumstances. A lot of people don't have the support at home either, we talk about the village, everyone's meant to have this village around them, and some people just don't. That can be really challenging. Juggling when you have a baby and you're in toddler or kinder or school, leaving for school pickups. People don't have the family support
100%.
to send a grandparent. So things like that make it really challenging. So it does have to work within your circumstances.
It does,
If you want it, chances are you're going to find a way to structure it so that it can happen.
Yeah, look, 100% working around it, finding the support helps. But one of the things that I noticed, I've had a child, having another one. When I heard the news that I'm having a baby, happy, celebrate, but never once thought about my career in that same sentence. I never thought, oh, what about work? I never even thought about it because I knew the show goes on with me. Whereas even though I'm 50-50 with my wife and I try to do as much as I can around the house and help and raise my child as much as I can, it never crossed my mind about my career. Obviously, as a female in any profession, it does cross your mind. What's going to happen to my job? And it's a shame that it does have to be like that in 2024. We're having our second baby now. My wife is a director at a national firm. She's up for a promotion, but now she's thinking, will I even get that? Because they've all found out I'm going on mat leave in June. Why should she even have to think that? It should be merit-based in what you've achieved while you're there, rather than about you going away for a year or whatever the time may be, and coming back and thinking, is my job even going to still be there? I know of another lady who was made redundant while she was on mat leave, where she was excelling before, and it's such a shame.
There is, I think, in some households, a genuine role reversal from the mum to the dad. And there's a lot of talk about who the default parent is. And so I don't disagree that women have the challenges. I hope we're all pioneering to make that easier for the next generation. We're definitely not there yet. I agree with you there. It is a shame that women don't have the same unencumbered path. But also, to the men, a lot of them are also really supporting some
Definitely.
real women leaders in
Definitely.
companies. And so it's about, again, working with your own circumstances.
Yes.
It's not easy.
It's
and
not easy.
it's harder for some than others because of the support they have at home, because of the different roles. I just hope that what we're doing, and all of us men, women, is making it easier for the next generation. And it's slow, but I think steady.
Yeah, but look, I definitely think we are making it easier. You're a living example of that. Juggling young family, successful partner, still moving forward, growing a practice area. That's inspirational. It takes the next person looking at that. Oh, if she can do it, I can do it. Whereas a lot of people didn't have those role models before.
Absolutely.
Your generation, us growing up, we didn't have that role model.
That's right. And it's also for people to understand that you're constantly shifting your priorities. Not your career's not always sitting at number one. Sometimes it's family. Looking after yourself, is also really important. Making sure you are the best version of yourself to even be able to operate. And it's just a constant juggle. I don't think anyone doing it is not understanding of that, massive juggle. And going through, this phase, especially of my career, I'll probably look back in 10 years' time and think, I don't quite know how I did it, but I got through. Every week's different as well. It's consolidating calendars. We all do it. Who's doing pickup? Who's doing drop off? Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously perseverance, resilience, hard work, as you mentioned. My dad always says hard work's not going to kill you, stress will, but hard work won't. Just keep on going,
Hard work's always going to be the common denominator in certain professions. It's unavoidable. I know we're trying to work smarter, not always harder.
Yeah.
Sometimes the hours, in the week consolidated can really be excessive. You do have to watch that. And, it's important to also have a life. At the end of the day,
100%.
work's work.
Yeah.
Right? But your life and your family is the most important. We all want to be good at our jobs.
That's something I'm coming to terms with. I'm a workaholic, as like most people, building a business. There's also pressures, there's also stress, like partnership, building your practice, but, my team keep reminding me that you need a balance, you need a system, because I've missed all the daycare drop-offs, the pickups, because I'm always working. I leave while they're sleeping, I come back when they're going to bed. And it's not sustainable, right?
It's not. And again, it's sort of what you have to prioritize at one point. Sometimes work does take sort of priority because of the phase you're in or the level that you're at. But also it's important, I think, to just take some pressure out of the tires occasionally if you can see that it's having an impact on the household or the family unit. Just to reprioritize maybe and just reassess. You constantly have to be reassessing because it's, it's going to change.
It is, yeah. What advice would you have to yourself coming through the career 20 years ago if you were to start all over again? Is there any advice you'd give your younger self?
First of all, I'd tell myself it's going to be okay and not to be so worried about it all the time, and to keep working through it, and to, yes, take every opportunity that's being presented to you. Say yes. I spent a lot of time saying yes to everything and trying to do it and taking myself off to all the CPDs, whether they were my area or not, and constantly learning. Keep doing that because one day it all just comes together in a way that you don't realise. So worry less, do more planning. I probably would have told myself. I found my purpose at some point when I was quite senior, and that was a really interesting concept to me of finding purpose, whether that's, a luxury not everyone has. But when I became a senior lawyer, I started to think about who I want to be, how I want to practice, what do I want my clients to know about me, and what do I want them to think about me. That's my brand. It's a service I'm selling. At the end of the day, this is a service to clients, what we do. and what do I want my internal profile to be at the firm, and to build that. Every year you're just constantly building on who you are. Very difficult to get to a senior practitioner having done no BD or marketing and then realise, go to the partner, how do I do BD? You've got to start it from when you're a junior. And what does that look like? It looks like any interaction you've got with who you work with and your clients. Get out there to the seminars and meet people. Start building your network. You don't know when that's going to pay off. You can be more strategic at a much earlier stage of your career than sometimes you realise.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. A lot of people are scared to take those risks, those chances, put themselves out there. They're very comfortable in. I spoke to a lawyer recently who'd been at a firm for 4 years, from paralegal and so on. She was so scared to take the next step. And she took the next step, signed the contract at another firm, and then 2 days before joining, pulled out because the fear of the unknown.
The fear.
Yeah.
Look, you do have to leap off the building sometimes.
Yeah.
For the most part, you need to plan for that and be ready. You need to feel ready to take it, because it is a big plunge. It is a big responsibility. And if you are really fighting for a promotion, you want to have your technical skills. You want to have, the start of a client base. Maybe you don't have it yet, but you're starting to get a following. People know who you are. Likability, relatability is really important as well. Nothing to discount. I mean, we all know those, cliche litigators, and there's a time and a place to be like that. But, depends on what area I guess you're in and how collaborative you want to be.
Oh, yeah, look, you're in a very taxing area of law in historical abuse, mentally. Before we end the podcast, I just wanted to touch on that. I speak to a lot of lawyers who are like, say, medical negligence, historical abuse, criminal law, family law. From a mental perspective, we all forget what they listen to every day, the content of their work. What advice would you have to those individuals? Because a lot of them love that area of law. I speak to even historical abuse lawyers. They love that practice area, but then they want to leave it because it's been too challenging for themselves.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give them?
So to find, I guess, longevity in taxing areas of law, especially historical sexual abuse, and it needs to be trauma-informed, right? To do away with some of the adversarial types of cliche legal practitioners and banging heads, and take good points of law, run meritorious claims, have a good sensitive claims policy that underpins the work is super important. There is vicarious trauma that can arise from this type of area of law. Make sure you're doing ongoing training as well. We have great policies at our firm where, we have to do a lot of vicarious trauma training, and it's time to sit in a session and really reflect about the work, how we're feeling, some of the challenges we're facing, and really at the end of the day support each other. Whoever's in the team, there needs to be really good support there. And I mean, this some of the plaintiff firms that do this work is incredibly taxing, and they, very resilient, hardworking, ethical lawyers, and they do it day in, day out. I guess when we do it, there's a split with other types of work, just so that we can get some relief and an understanding too that anyone in this area of law, especially if they're more junior, does need a break sometimes. They might not want to do it all the time. There needs to be some balance in the workload, I think is really important.
Yeah, that's great advice, because we're seeing fewer and fewer lawyers in this space. As you can imagine, you probably go through it from a recruitment standpoint. To find great talent in this space, it's getting harder and harder. It's because a lot of people are put away from the stress and the content. And the same is in criminal law as well, the things that people go through there, especially defendant side there. So, in terms of going forward, mental health being number one, how do you personally keep your mental health in the right place?
Good question. I do a lot of work in and out of sort of office hours on mental health and the mental health of our team. Again, that really supportive environment. I have outlets sort of in my personal life, obviously with my little girl. I take time out. I watch my stress levels now is probably the biggest thing I do. I don't take for granted how much I work and when I need a break. I will take a break. I'll take a day off when I need it. If we've had a really busy period, I urge, my team to look at taking some time off. I think that's really important. You need to reset occasionally. No one can go full pelt all of the time. This thing of hoarding leave and, not taking days off and, trying to, be a robot through it's not going to work for you long term. You need to constantly readjust and reset. Take your days off. Find some hobbies to do. Really important.
Yeah, look, I think that's great advice, and coming from yourself hopefully will inspire others budding in this career. It's a tough career, rewarding, tough, hard work, but I mean, every lawyer I've spoken to loves law.
Yeah, it's when you're in it, I guess you sort of thrive in it. It's a great profession to be in. It's very rewarding. It gives you give a lot to it, but it gives a lot back to you. And it's great working with when you have great clients. There's nothing better to find a career that really is going to take you long term.
Yeah. Brilliant. Look, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. We look forward to seeing you at the Women in Law this year and maybe winning something again this year again.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.